why bother with a strategy? So why bother with a strategy? In fact, that word is almost boring in itself, isn't it? But it represents something. What I'm going to do is give 7 reasons from my experience why I think it's worth bothering. But first I'm going to give a word from Michael Porter. Now, Michael Porter is the Harvard professor, so he's got a lot of experience with thousands of companies. And what he has to say is that most companies don't have a strategy. They go to work, they work hard, they're ambitious, they're committed, but most companies, in his view, don't have a strategy in any meaningful way. And I think that what he's driving at is that they're focused on competition. They're not focused on creating unique value for their customer. They're not focused on creating unique value for their customer. And the purpose of strategy, in my book, is to create value for your customer and therefore for the business, to create a long-term value. Okay, let me go into my 7 reasons for having, why bother, 7 reasons for bothering. First of all, you know what you are doing, but you know how you are going to do it. And that how word, for me, sometimes I feel I labor it, but it's important. I worked in one of the top advertising agencies in the world, and people couldn't tell me what a strategy was. I worked in marketing for 10 years before I knew what a strategy was, even though I was working in brand strategy all the time. My guess was that everybody was guessing, and in a way, quite often, just the fastest talker won the argument. But this wasn't satisfactory from my perspective, so I set about working it out. That's maybe a terrible admission, but I think that I don't think that I'm alone in not knowing what a strategy is, or I didn't think, and I'm going to be confused if I go on with that line of thought. So you want to know in business, you're going from A to B, and the strategy is how you're going to get there, how you're going to create the value. The second reason for knowing how you're going to do that is so that you can tell other people. So you can tell the people that are working with you, and you can tell your customers. It seems obvious, doesn't it? But if you don't know how you're going to get there, how are you going to tell other people? What are you going to tell them? Yeah. And I am sorry to say this, people spend a lot of time and money on documents that represent themselves as some sort of strategy for the business. They miss out the ingredient called how. They don't effectively know what they're doing, and they have meeting after meeting after meeting arguing about what they don't know what they're doing about, which, if you think about it, is absurd. The third reason is that a strategy keeps you relevant to the market. It must be absolutely clear from what's happening to Arcadia and Debenhams that staying relevant to your market, to your customer, and how they want to do business, and the kind of things that they like, that you can have as big a company as you like, but if you're no longer relevant, they have been very successful, but if you're no longer relevant, it's the liquidator. And that's a good reason, in my view, for just giving strategy, that word how, some attention. The fourth reason for having a strategy is that you can deflect ideas. So ideas that are outside of the strategy can be deflected away, because you've got you know what you're doing, you know how you're going to do it, and if something comes along that doesn't fit the brief, you can say quite simply, no, we're not going to be bothering with that suggestion. And this can save an enormous amount of time. I'm stating the obvious, but the amount of time that's wasted on ideas that are not fitting to the strategy is, well, you'll have your own experience about that. So the fifth reason then for having a strategy is that you have a clear focus on providing your customers unique value. And as you have a clear focus on providing unique value, you can build out that unique value, which kind of multiplies the effect of the value that you're adding, strengthens your brand position or your business position, and that strengthening gives you more security in terms of the cash that you can generate for the business. The sixth reason for bothering with a strategy is that in a crisis, a clear direction reduces panic. So this is a leadership issue. You know, in a crisis, you know where you're going, you know how you're going to get there. There is a crisis, there is an adjustment to be made. But having that sort of clarity, because you know what it is that you want to achieve and how you're going to achieve it, although the how might change a bit in terms of the channels and that sort of thing, this has the effect of reducing panic. And the seventh reason, which is sort of linked to the sixth, but this is why it's worth doing. Overall, having a strategy reduces stress and increases fun. So once you know what you're doing and how you're doing it, the game is on and you can focus on the game. And if you want to fight with someone in the boardroom, you can fight about the game. But you don't want to fight about the thing you don't know what you're doing about. Now that's a very sort of clumsy phrase, but I work in this area all the time. It is embarrassing for people to admit they don't have a well-formed structure for working out a strategy. Most of the obvious mistakes are the words that you've heard: vision, mission, purpose. All of these values are clearly all important, but none of them are a strategy. None of them. So when you put up those words on the wall and you say that's our strategy, I can tell you it isn't. And you've got institution and company after company thinking it is. So there's a really good reason for bothering with a strategy. It shows that you know what you're doing. And now I'm slightly cross, but I'll sign off on that point. Those are 7 reasons for why to bother with a strategy. That boring word that gets repeated by people who don't know what they're talking about.